Hello, who is it? What do you want? Hello, who is it? What do you want?
My name is Eddie Gray, and as many of you have been watching, we've been covering the Logic user guide quite extensively. Now, what I want to tell you today is that we're going to get into the user guide a little bit further. We're on page 555. We've been covering the mixer, talking about all the various aspects of the program and their application. Now, why that's important is because you can watch a video, you can get the information, and lose most of it in just a moment. Because without the application, you really can't solidify that moment. So we're going to get into the user guide. I'm going to give you some application. And then after that, you're going to go to your DAW and you're going to work on it diligently. I am ready to go, fired up. Let's get right into it. What's up? How you doing? Hey guys, happy Thursday, happy Thursday. We're on page 555. You ready? All right, guys, we're going to start talking about the EQ. I'm going to give you lots of tips and tricks that you cannot find anywhere else. Stay tuned. And of course, if you've been following and you appreciate what we're up to, go ahead and send this to somebody that you love. Let's go! Let's go. Here we go. All right. As a reminder, put all the important things in your life first. And when you get into anything, a conversation, a podcast, a relationship, working on the DAW, practicing your piano, whatever it is, bring some energy to it, bring some life to it. I want to get right in. We're on page 555, and I just say we go in. I'm really anticipating this, and I'm just looking forward to spending this time with you, so let's go. All right, talking about the channel EQ. Now, this is an audio effect, although it's probably the most important of the bunch. I would say heads on one side of the coin is the EQ, and then I would say tails on the other side of the coin is compression. So in most mixing situations, it's going to be used on the first effect on a channel strip, allowing you to shape the sound of an individual channel strip signal. Or you can use this for tone shaping, and we'll go over some of the other applications. Like, for example, if you want to change the audio signal in real time, let's say through automation, this is something that you can do, and you can watch the changes taking place here in the EQ thumbnail. So this is a pretty remarkable feature here that you get to see it in real time on the channel strip. I don't know a lot of other DAWs that do that. I could be wrong, though. All I use is Logic. So, but, you know, I've hung out with Pro Tools folks and Ableton folks. Okay, so look, audio effect slot number 1, right? I believe we have 15 inserts. For the most part, people are going to use an EQ on the first insert. This is not a universal truth. In the case of vocals, for example, you might want to use a compressor first. No right or wrong. Now, most of us, we know how to instantiate a plugin right at the most basic level. You go to the channel strip itself. We click on the rightmost part of the audio insert, and then we click one time over, and then we access wherever we have the plugin located, right? That's kind of at the most basic level. If I actually double click the EQ thumbnail, something special happens. I can instantiate an EQ without necessarily having to instantiate an EQ. Another way to do this is to hold Shift and click, and you'll find that we can bring up a linear phase EQ, which has better application in mixing and mastering scenarios. So just be aware that we can double click the EQ thumbnail. The same goes for the mixer. And when you create changes, as I said, these are reflected in the EQ thumbnail. For example, if I create what's called a band pass, one of the many moves that an EQ can create. Well, if I highlight the EQ thumbnail, we can see that being reflected back. I will open up the low and the high cut, and I will take off this bell filter, and then now we're back to normal. I would say in most cases, it's probably not a bad idea to have a high and a low cut. Where exactly, everybody's so different about their opinions about all this stuff. But at the very least, 30 hertz on the low end. Some people would say, 19, 20 up here. Some people like it a little bit further down to eliminate high sheen. I will tell you, I just analyzed Taylor Hawkins drums. I actually saw the EQ curve for the drum bus, and they had a hard cut around 16,000 hertz, which told me a lot in terms of the sound that they're able to pull off. So good. We know how to instantiate the plugin. First plugin, all existing plugins are moved one slot down. Okay, so all they're saying here on this next part is, look, if you put a plugin above whatever the first inserted plugin is, it's basically going to move down in order. So let me grab this distortion. Let's see if we can pull it right up here. And let's see. Let me pull this. Hold on. Let's see how it go. Track number 1, grab the distortion, see if we could just slightly bring it up. Yeah. So you'll notice that as you hover above the first insert, that a small line is highlighted, and then you should be able to drop it right in there. I believe the same goes for the middle. Yeah, same goes for the middle. So depending on where you place the plugin, you should be able to instantiate at the very top of the chain, in between other plugins, and everything will kind of move accordingly, or at the very end of the chain. Just depends on how you want to do it. Page 556. Let's keep going here. Let me make sure I'm sharing. Yes. All right. So we're going to work in the plugin window. So there's a feature. It's inside of your preferences. It's called Display Mixer Pane. It's called Open Plugin Window on Insertion. So this is a really nice feature. Let's go ahead and open that up. So I'm going to hit X. I'm going to open up that. I'm going to hit Display. And we want to go into the mixer, and we want to enable Open Plugin Window on Insertion. What does this mean? This means that every single time I instantiate a plugin, in this case I'm going to instantiate Bit Crusher, I don't have to go through the trouble of opening up the plugin, right? It automatically was instantiated for me. If you haven't checked out Plug Search by Speaker Food, you should. It's a third-party app which basically allows you to navigate the Logic plugins in no time. So check that out if you guys want to move a little bit faster. And so if we want to open a plugin window, you want to click the center area of the plugin slot. We've talked about this extensively, right? How we open up, how we can bypass the plugin if need be. Looks like the user guide is starting to talk about being able to adjust the size of the plugin window. We can link plugin windows when more than one is open, and then of course switch plugin parameter view, and then route sidechain source signal. So there's a lot coming up here. Let's keep going. When we talk about adjusting a slider, we can drag vertically, horizontally. If we command click, looks like we basically set it to the clicked value. So for example, let's bring up a compressor. I think they mean option click, but they did use the word slider as well. So I just want to make sure that we're following the right stuff here. Adjust plugin parameter, adjusting a slider, a rotary knob. Yeah, you see how they're using command click, but really what they mean to knob to set it to the clicked value. Wait a minute. I think they're not talking about default value. They're talking about the clicked value. So if I hold command right now, yeah, okay, good. I'm glad we got that one. So there's a couple things with these rotary knobs or sliders. If I make the adjustment. We know what that looks like and feels like. If I hold shift, we can work with finer increments. Let's say I went all the way to -40, and I want to go back to the default value. If I option click, then this takes me back kind of to the beginning. In this case, 20, right? This kind of takes me back to where we first started. Let's pull up a quick preset to see how true this is. So so these are all the default values. And I guess an interesting question is, what determines the default values? And I don't know this to be true, but I believe the recall default may be responsible for that. No, it doesn't seem like it. I think the plugin has unique values unto itself. See, I set up my default like this. I like to initialize the compressor, the EQ. With an EQ, I like to have a low cut, and it seems like it has a built-in setting to reset to default. So option click resets to default. Okay, so let me hit Command Z to undo that, because I have include plugin and undo steps in project undo history. Now, what they're saying in the user guide is if I hold Command and I want to make a change and do it quickly without necessarily having to grab the rotary knob, then you can do that just like this. If I had an EQ opened up, I wonder if the same goes. I'm not sure, to be honest, because I've never done that. So let's see if I have this. Wow. I think it's doing it. Hold on. Is it? Not really. No. Okay. So this may not apply with an EQ, but in terms of the rotary knobs, that seems to work pretty well. Let's instantiate, let's do some of the vintage EQ collection. Let's do the console EQ, see what that looks like. So again, just command clicking all around. If I hold option, resets back to its default as expected. I can't think of anything with sliders right now. But yeah, that's that. Let's see. I guess that's good. Let's highlight that. And that was to adjust the slide, to adjust the rotary knob. Command click anywhere on the value range to set it to the clicked value. So that's cool. To adjust the numerical field, we can drag. You can also double click in the numerical field and then type in a new value. In case of EQ, for example, I guess we'll do this one right here. And I want to change the value here. I can double click, type in 4 dB. Hit return, and you can change that. Of course, we can just grab the actual graphic here, right? You don't have to necessarily enter the numerical value. Always more than one way to do it here in Logic Pro. Press and hold shift before dragging a control. We talked about that already as well. And then if we want to reset the parameter, we can option click. Let's see, rotary knob. Yeah, we know that. 557. Let's keep it going here. If you want to undo a plugin parameter change, so long as this is on, okay, let's say I make a change and I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that curve. I kind of liked what I had before. Command Z brings me back. Okay, we want to hide or show the plugin. Click the icon at the top right corner of the plugin, and that is going to hide and show the top portion of the plugin. Why is this important? Well, let's say I resize this using the view menu here and I go to 175, which is pretty massive, right? We can hide this info, so we're just looking at the EQ curve. I think this right here is a great education if you really want to learn something without having to, overwhelm your line of sight. You can just hide it. So we can resize the plugin as well. Okay. Let's see. We talked about adjusting the size. That's great. What else? We can switch the view, which may not apply to some of you, but still worth a mention. If I click on view and I go into the controls, look at this. I interviewed a really great composer named Jacques Franco, great guy, and he is a blind composer. He has some visual impairments, and he uses this. It's really fantastic. He uses it along with some other Apple tech, and this is how he navigates the landscape. And does a phenomenal job at it. So yeah, this is not, you don't have to necessarily use it, but it does help visually impaired folks who are making music and crushing it out there. So that is something to think about. But I think also, sometimes it could be just a good study. Like if you increase the frequency at, 1300 hertz, what is that going to sound like? What's the end result? I think that's an interesting study. But for the most part, most of us are just going to use this here. Let's see here. If we want to link or unlink, I think we've talked about this. But if we haven't, let's just kind of graze over it. So look, if you have a single plugin window, okay, and you want to be able to move swiftly through several of them, we're going to control click the link button, and we're going to get some information here. I'm going to control click. It says off, single, or multi. Okay, in order for this to be pulled off properly, you need to have another plugin on the next channel strip. I do. I have an EQ at the top of the screen. I have an EQ at the bottom of the screen. Let me make this curve very drastically different so you can tell the difference. So I'm going to control click here, and I'll hit single. Okay, so then now as soon as I go back to track number 1, look what happens. I'm on track number 1 and I go to track number 2, and then now rather than having to hover the mouse over the channel strip, what do I mean when I say the channel strip, the left channel strip inspector here? What ends up happening is that Logic automatically instantiates the plugin because I told it to, right? When I utilized link, I said, hey, I would like to focus on linking single plugins. So again, back to track number 1, instantiates the first EQ, track number 2, the same bit. Let's try the same for the compressor. Okay. Oh, that's another thing too, is you can select the compressor and then it's going to replace the plugin. When you don't have this behavior on, what happens? But we start to overcrowd the screen, right? And that can get boring really quick because you're just over mousing around. You're just moving too much and doing too much. So again, if I click here, you can determine its behavior. We'll start with single, and we select the compressor. Now that's been instantiated. Now, if you set that to key commands, check this out, right? Look how I have this set up. I'm going back and forth, back and forth. So that's a really clean workflow. Stay tuned to learn how to do that. Okay, so that is good. We've got link on. If I have my compressor on and then track number 2 doesn't have a second plugin inserted, guess what? Nothing's going to happen. Let's insert distortion 2 in here. It too is now link enabled. If I go back to track number 1, the plugin that's inserted on audio insert number 2 is a compressor, and of course now it is brought up because link is on and ready. Go back down to track number 2. As you would expect, distortion 2 is popping back and forth. Make sense? All right, so there is one more that we have not discussed and looked at, and that's multi. So what this says is, as you select the channel strips or plugins, a single plugin window updates to display plugins in the same insert. First row, second row, and so on. You can open multiple plugin windows and set each window to multi-mode in order to display the plugins of more than one row of inserts as you select different channel strips. An example, you could insert a channel EQ plugin into the first slot and then a compressor into the second slot of multiple channel strips. If you then open a channel EQ plugin, a compressor plugin window, and put both plugin windows into multi-mode, what's going to happen, my good friends, is that as you select each channel strip for the purposes of mixing or anything else, the channel EQ and compressor plugin for the selected channel strip is going to be displayed. Multi-mode, the link button turns yellow. You can simply click on the link button to toggle between off and single mode, right? So you don't necessarily have to determine single mode. If you want to control click on the link button, it's because you want to get into multi-mode. Roger that. Okay, so let's put this to the test. I've got track number 1, an EQ, a compressor. Track number 2, an EQ and a distortion. All right, so I'm going to open up my first instantiated plugin. Now I'm currently utilizing what? Single. At least it was when it was on. Let's see if this is true. Yes. So I'm going to hit up multi. Now that turns yellow. We had purple on before. And I'm going to open up the compressor. So now, rather than replacing it, right, we can see the compressor now. So let's go ahead and turn this on. All right, we're in multi, and we're in multi. Okay, so theoretically, as soon as I select channel strip number 2, we should see the EQ and the distortion. Let's go. Okay, I clicked on the wrong track, but that's the idea, is that we're seeing the first 2 plugins. Let's click on the right track, and there they go. All right, so now you have multi-mode available to you. Why is this useful? Why is it precious? Because if you're mixing and you're going back and forth between 2, 3, 4 tracks, and you're really trying to refine your decisions and minimize your expenditure of energy, then we know that this is a great resource. This is something else that we can utilize when working. This is something that we can depend on when going through the motions of mixing and mastering. Sometimes you simply don't have the time, energy, willpower, focus in order to do it all, in order to, be superwoman, superman. And so this gives us a leg up on the competition so far as we have a workflow and we can save our resources, save our energy, and focus on the sound, focus on the production. All right, this is great. Let's keep going here. 559. Eddie Gray reading the Logic User Guide. The link mode affects the entire project. It's not possible to have the link mode set differently in different plugin windows of the same project. Okay, this is cool because kind of up to this point we've talked about screen sets and different windows and how they all have their individual cursor tools and all this good stuff. Here they're letting you know, hey, this falls in line for everything. Just want to be clear. The link mode can either be set single for the entire project or multi-mode for one or more rows of plugins. Yep, we got it. This means that if multi-mode is selected, clicking the link button on additional plugins that are not currently linked engages multi-mode for that row of plugins. And if single mode is selected in any plugin, multi-mode is turned off. Yeah, sure, I would imagine. Okay, so that makes sense. We're going to start talking about side chaining signals. Now, there's been some updates to this in 10.6, so this is worth a read. Plugins with the sidechain source can use an audio from an audio or software instrument track. That's kind of worded funny, isn't it? Hardware input, or you can bus to trigger the plugin. You know what? I'm going to highlight that. I like it. For example, the dynamics of a drum groove can be used to rhythmically change the compression and therefore the dynamics of a guitar synthesizer. Right? It's going to change how it reacts accordingly. The sidechain signal is used to control the plugin, but is not processed by the plugin. So we can use sidechaining to control another plugin, and we're talking dynamically speaking, right? Okay, so how do we find this? Well, you'll notice that some plugins don't even have a sidechain signal, right? It's not that you cannot sidechain. For example, with Logic's EQ, you can't sidechain, but with FabFilter's Q3, you can. So let's just look at what Logic offers here. Let me see if I have anything legato here that I want to use. Yeah, I guess we'll use the guitar against the drums here. Let's listen to these 2 parts. Check it out. Okay, cool. You understand what that is doing. So I like that drum sound. I'm going to bounce this because I have like an aggressive EQ curve. So I want it for this section, but not for the next. Okay. So then from here, we're going to let this play out, get a little bit bigger. Okay, good. So what I want to turn your attention towards is the fact that we're going to use this guitar to be influenced by these drums. So listen to the drum beat really quick. All right, good. So you heard all the parts, how they move, how they shake. Fantastic. Let me just add a little bit of EQ to this. Okay, cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a compressor, again, track number 3, and I'm going to tell Logic, hey, I don't want to be influenced by the internal sound, meaning the actual guitar that's playing, right, the source sound. I would like this to be influenced. It's cool. You could even use an external input. That's awesome. But no, we're going to use the drums. So squeezed kit. Where is that? Is it audio 5 now? All hands beat 1. This is all, the naming is all kind of funny. Here, let me name this properly. Sometimes I'll just go all hands SC to try and remind me here. Let's see if we could find it right there. All right, so if that happens to you, just rename your track in the track header and you should be good. And so then now what's going to happen is that this guitar is going to be influenced by the playback of this. So every time the signal hears the drums, the guitar will duck down. Let me show you this with no effect whatsoever, just so you kind of hear the basic idea. Okay, now let me exaggerate so you hear kind of the most drastic effect possible. So you hear what's happening when the kick is coming in, when the snare is coming in, my signal is ducking out. Now, I wouldn't say that's a desirable sound nor a good sound, but I would say that if I maybe blended that to taste, that it could sound like it gels a lot more, possibly. This is not necessarily an application that you would use every time, but let's try this. Let's see if it works. Okay, so when you try this, I want you to ask yourselves a couple questions. Number 1, what am I hearing? Does this sound tighter? Does this sound like one piece of fabric? Does it sound like one piece of music? Or does it sound like a bunch of different articles just playing out like a bunch of musical vomit, right? Because the goal is to try and get the music to be interwoven, to be as tight as possible. And sometimes you're going to need to use techniques in order to apply that methodology. For example, you can EQ to try and allocate the frequencies to make sure everything kind of sits in the right space. That's just one method. That's not going to solve all your problems, your musical problems, that is. Number 2, you can use a compressor, and sometimes this will create the glue, the closeness that you're looking for, right? Sometimes you need something to sound a little bit tighter. This might be just the thing. Now, the reason I sidechained it was because I wanted these to fit a little bit better together, right? Now, that's not to say that there aren't 4 other instruments that I have to consider, but that also isn't to say that I'm going to use the same technique for all 4 of them, right? This just may be what I need for the, in this case, the rhythm section. Let's listen to it. Yeah, because this is part of the bed, it's like the guitar, the bass, and the drums. And really, these 2 are kind of the lead instruments here. Take a listen. I would say that this is a good mixing decision, right? I want this to be tucked away in the back a little bit more. And by the way, there's a lot more you can do. For example, I'll take this threshold. Wait, I'm on the wrong compressor, I believe. Yeah, let me grab this guy. Yeah, not that one, this one. And I'll just push it back a little bit more. So listen to this. So then now I've in fact positioned this in such a way where it's living behind me, if you will, behind you, behind the soundscape. If I take this off, listen to how much looser the guitar gets. Check it out. Yeah, it almost feels like the duckling that just got lost, right? Everybody was moving in one direction, and this one got a little bit lost. So these are things that you'll start to be able to discern and look at closely over time. For now, I just want you to understand that this is the application. This is how you would do it. So you can sidechain a couple of other things, but let's continue on our journey here. Hide or show additional parameters. It looks like with some plugins, we can actually pick up on additional parameters. The EQ has this. When I hover over the bottom left of the EQ, we see a disclosure triangle, which simply pulls up analyzer decay, how the analyzing spectrogram is going to react and how it decays over time. So simple stuff. Here we go. And so why would you want to do this? Well, let's say you're trying to get the readout of a snare. As you can hear with my beat, it's all encompassed in one source sound. And so if I'm not able to look at the EQ curve and determine where the snares kick in or where the toms hit, if I change the decay, I might get a little bit more information in real time. All right, so that's cool. What else we got? Working with plugin settings. So these are all stored with the project file, and they're all automatically recalled. You think of a console back in the days, they couldn't even recall the settings. They had to take a bunch of pictures. Of course, modern technology has solved a lot of these problems, but when you pull these up, everything should be recalled just as the way you found it. All right, Logic's pretty stable in that way now, except for those of you working with Sampler. I just got a comment on YouTube. Somebody kept losing files because he was using Sampler. If you guys haven't used Sampler or Quick Sampler, that's this guy right here. And I don't think this is the case for Sampler, but just in case, make sure that you save the source sound. I think this has more to do with the Sampler plugin. And then worst case scenario, if you're confused about what to do, go to File, Project Management, and consolidate all of the files in your session before you clean up. And that right there is going to do a lot. I have not lost a file in years. I mean, seriously. I just think you need to know the order of things, and then you should be able to, cruise and have an easy workflow. All right, loading a plugin. Select the relevant channel strip, right? Where are you going to load it? Track 2, track 3. Then click the triangle that appears to the left of the effect or instrument slot in the inspector channel strip. The library updates to show presets for the selected plugin. Okay, so what they're telling you here is, let's say we're utilizing, wait, why am I moving that bass? Command Z. Let's hit clear and recall solo. That's that button up there. I just hit that key command. So let's say I have, not Serum, I want to do something, drum synth. So this is tech that it was created by Logic. I'm going to open up the inspector and the library. Okay, so this small blue disclosure triangle tells me what I'm looking at inside of the library. Now, I would like to see the presets inside of drum synth. So rather than having this hovering and focusing on the channel strip settings, as we've talked about before, what I'll do is I'll slowly hover down here. I'll hit drum synth. You'll notice that the blue disclosure triangle will now be framed around drum synth. If you've been following, you know that key focus is the heart of this program. It's how it operates. You need to understand it to really make the most of it. All right, so then now we're focused on drum synth. Here are all of my presets, right? So think of this like a window into the plugin. Eddie, can I just open up the plugin and look inside? This is how I'm used to doing it, so this is how I want to do it. Absolutely. If you need the visual stuff in front of you, that's fine. But for those of you that already have a great sound, like let's just say I've fallen in love with this bass sound, and I'm just looking for something else. right? It's really not that complicated. All I have to do is go to kicks. I know this is an 808, but just kind of indulge me here. I'll go to, the preset menu in the library, and I'll just kind of scope out what's available. Let's go. Yeah, so just by having a sense of how to work the plugin, I was able to take the decay, right? It was a very short decay before, so I increased the decay. That helped a lot with the sound design, being able to get the sustain of the kick to carry out over time. And then on top of that, it was too high of a pitch, and so I just dropped this down 1 octave. I click, I held down, I dragged down, but you can also just double click and hit -12, and that will render the same result. Cool. Settings, what's going on here? Loading. Okay, yeah, I talked to you about how to find presets inside. Open the settings pop-up menu, then choose a setting from the sub-menu. Told you how to do that. Good. Choose the next or previous plugin setting. Okay, this is kind of cool. So let's say you're like, I'm not going to do the bass on because I actually like what I just created there. But let's say you're like, I've got Alchemy here, right? Like, I really want to change the sound. Well, of course, we know that we can go into the browser and change it with all the visual components. That's fine. But we also have something great here. It's a key command as well. It's called next or previous. And by simply hitting the brackets here, I can shift over to the next preset depending on where you're currently located. And that's another way to investigate presets. Let's listen to what we have here. Okay, so that's another way to do it. I'm going to go back to what I had instantiated before. It was called Fairy Phrases. Yeah, I really like this one. It fits the world of my song here, so let's keep going here. Sweet. So now we have a way to be able to navigate presets and do it effortlessly using brackets, okay? So that's really nice. We've got key commands, loads of them, in fact. You can use the next plugin setting or sampler instrument, the previous plugin setting or sampler instrument, next channel strip or plugin setting, lots of stuff here, okay? So I'm going to take you as far as that. Click the left arrow or the right arrow. You can always use next or previous setting as well. So again, going back here, you can click on these two to navigate through presets, okay? And bear in mind that these are presets. What are you looking at in the library? That's what is going to be selected, okay? Let's see, anything else? No. Let me just see if there's anything I missed here. Click the left arrow, open the settings pop-up menu. Where is the settings pop-up menu? Is it the key? Wait, hold on. So yeah, I'm not sure which plugin. I suppose it's that doesn't make sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm not. Maybe they're talking about the channel strip settings. Choose next setting or previous setting. Yeah, we need some more information if that's going to be. Yeah, next channel strip setting, previous channel strip setting. So you can also select from your channel strip. So let's say, let me open up something new for this. Here on track number 13, I don't have anything selected. Let me take off my microphone here. And so if I select, let's say let's do something that's, single drum processing, right? Let's see, did I do that? Was that on the right file? No, that's a folder. Let's do fix bad panning. And again, if you hit the preset shift forward bracket or back, now we can go to the next channel strip. In this case, you're going to see phase, fix, and respread, all by hitting shift forward and back bracket. So that can change the channel strip settings. Again, that wasn't stated here, at least clearly. So that is a strike through. Should make that a little bit clear. And then there's a bunch of key commands that you can also utilize if you're interested in this kind of thing. All right. Compared, edited plugin parameters with the original setting. So there's a really cool feature called compare. All right. What it's going to do for you is it's going to allow you to kind of A/B your work. So click the compare button to listen to the setting that was originally saved with the project. Then when you do that, it looks like it turns black. And then once you do it again, it switches back to the edited plugin setting, and that's going to turn blue for you. I think at the most basic level, if we listen to this with EQ, that we should get a lot from it. Let's go ahead and try this. So for example, I make a change. Now this has been saved, this setting. So let's see if I make a drastic change. Let's do something like this. Just a nice little feature to be able to undo or at least reflect on your choices and see if they're right for the current decision that you're making. If you want to copy and paste a plugin setting, it's really not that hard to do. You go to copy. All right, remember this EQ curve, if you may. I'll open up another EQ, and simply by hitting paste, we have now accomplished that with ease. Okay, cool. What else we got? Want to reset a plugin, you can do that. So let's say I didn't like wrong button. Let's say I didn't like the choice that I just made with I hope I have the right track instantiated. Hold on, shift 1. Yeah. Like, yeah, you know what? I want to take it back to the beginning. Let's just recall the default. In my case, my default is low cut at 30 and then high cut at 20. Did I reset setting? Oh, okay. There's also something else you could do. Let's say you, I don't know, completely, botch the channel strip and you want to reset it to go back to the beginning. If I click on the channel strip settings here, I can actually reset the channel strip. Now you're not deleting it. Okay. You're not deleting it from your settings. You're simply just resetting it so you can start anew. So that's locked and loaded. All right. Default plugin settings, highly recommended, especially with plugins that you're using most often. If I instantiate a compressor by double clicking the EQ thumbnail and I click right atop here, what do we find? Save as default. Again, this works for me. It seems to be a go-to move. To be honest, I like this to go even up further in a lot of cases. I know there's a lot of arguments for and against, but especially if you're a beginner, you definitely want a hard cut 80, 50 hertz for anything that is not the bass and the kick. This is a general rule, not the truth. We know that we can delete a plugin setting. Let's say I came home late one night and I had a lot to eat and drink and underslept, and I think I'm making these amazing EQ curves, right? You're like, yes, this is like the most perfect setting ever, like for a vocalist in rap, right? I remember doing this for a client once. These are some heavy notches. And I don't know, after a while, you're like, you know what? I need to get some sleep. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. Then you come back tomorrow, you realize this is not the sound that you want. So you want to click here, and then you want to delete the setting. And this will literally delete it from your user presets. So if you want to create a user preset, it's as simple as save as, then create what it is you're trying to create. So let's just say I want to resave this for some reason. This menu will come up, and these are all parameters that I've saved. All right, presets that I've saved. I'll cancel this. You can also save a copy. Okay, and then if you want to save your default, that's where you do that. Again, you can completely mess up the settings, and you want to go back to the default, recall default, and we're back here. Okay, awesome. Let's keep going. All right, looks like we are transitioning into plugins. All right, so when we talk about plugins, we have to have the conversation of latency as well, right? We can't just talk about the plugin and what it does. It's like you really have to consider the latency. And so what does that mean? Audio processed by some effect and instrument plugins may incur or get small timing delays. All right, so this seems really insignificant right now, the way that they're wording this, but it's a big deal, gigantic even. Okay, so I want to make sure you understand that. Latency is the setting that you will change the most in every DAW. A signal may incur input latency, so basically delay, output latency, delay on the way out, or both. And so this is why it gets confusing, because you have to understand how to treat it. And in Logic, we basically have three forms of latency. For example, playing a software instrument only incurs an output latency because it's generated by an application. So if the plugin is heavy in terms of its processing, we're only going to hear the latency on the way out. Okay. And again, just replace the word latency with delay. Let's not make this fancier than it has to be. Okay. However, an audio recording that is being monitored in real time has both an input and an output latency. So have you ever recorded vocals and you say the word hey, plays like 5 seconds after? That's called latency, a delay, right? Input latency and output latency are summed, resulting in an overall monitoring latency. Each further process, such as the use of the insert effects, more plugins, may also add latency, which is added to the overall monitoring latency. You can compensate by, what does it say? You can compensate for internal latencies introduced by plugins. So there's things you can do to help with the process, and so that's what we're going to talk about now. Something that I should say, just a quick side note, if you want to monitor your latency and see what's going on with your system right now, go ahead, search through the preferences. It says here resulting latency. So right now, as it stands, with a buffer size of 1024, that's where my latency stands. If I were to change this and have it be higher, you'll notice that now I've greatly reduced the delay or latency by reducing the buffer size. I'm going to keep it at 1024 because we're doing this live, and I just want that to stay and be clean and simple. Okay. How do we compensate for this delay? Well, we can turn plugin latency compensation on. So this is called low latency mode. When this setting is turned on, Logic Pro compensates for this delay, ensuring that the audio is routed through them is synchronized. This is achieved by calculating amounts of latency caused by plugins and then delaying audio streams by an appropriate amount. That seems complicated. Wait, plugin latency compensation. I just want to make sure that we're not looking at, general plugin latency. So right here in preferences under general, you're going to want to have all on. That's going to really help you with your session. Okay. If you want to turn on low latency mode, you can find it here in preferences, but you'll also find it atop the screen here in the control bar, low latency mode. If you don't see it, it's because you have to control click, customize control bar on display, and then set it inside of your modes and functions, low latency mode. Let's see, anything else to be said here? I think we'll get more on this next track, page rather. Talk to you about low latency mode, how we turn it on. Again, the audio is routed around latency causing plugins. Signal flow. The sound may change when you turn on low latency mode, and this is because Logic is going to turn off certain plugins, and so this may sound different, but plugins are still there. They're just utilizing this tech in order to kind of create expedite the workflow and create some speed when it comes to processing. If the plugins being used do not exceed the total latency limit, there is no audible difference. So you may not even hear a difference, but believe me, if you have a lot of tracks with a lot of plugins, at some point you're going to hear a difference. If latency-inducing plugins are inserted into audio or instrument channel strips, Logic is going to shift these tracks forward in time. Okay, so this is when we utilize plugin latency compensation. This is inside of the preferences. I personally have never moved this and have never had any need to. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just letting you know. I've left it there. Seems to work all the time. But it's available to you. So it looks like Logic kind of does some stuff in the background to make sure that nothing is delayed. If latency-inducing plugins are inserted into an aux or output channel strip, Logic Pro delays all other audio streams by an appropriate amount. Okay, so this may be something that you want to use. I have never used it, but I'm also pretty big on constantly bouncing to audio and doing things like that, where I don't need to do that. If I have to freeze, I will, but for the most part, I just commit to audio. Okay, so it looks like we are going into plugins now. So we've covered latency plugins. How do we, look at all these. Let me take this off. Yeah. How do we combat latency as a whole? Well, we know we can use low latency mode, which will take care of most situations in most cases. And then again, if you have, like, let's say on track number 2, I have a lot of plugins, in this case only 3, and you find that, this is going to be the part for my song, I don't want to necessarily change this, then it's not a bad thing to go ahead and bounce. Okay, so that's another thing. And if you want more information on this, you're going to want to check out my course, How to Maximize Your Desktop and Laptop CPU Performance. Currently has over 4,500 downloads to date, and you can check that out at hfmusicacademy.com. This is a free course. Okay, so when we're talking about third-party plugins in Logic, these are called audio units format. So Apple basically created their own format to suit the needs of their clients. So there are different plugin formats. You have AAX, which is Pro Tools, VST, which I believe is like Ableton and other DAWs. Some DAWs use multiple formats, but in the case of Apple Logic, you only have AU available. So if I go here and I go into my plugins, you'll see that under here, wrong folder. No, where is it? Hold on. Yeah, here. Under components, I've got all third-party plugins here. So if you ever want to delete something, because I don't know, maybe you don't have the demo anymore or something, then you want to delete it inside here. Okay. Oh, and by the way, where is that folder? That's probably a good look for you guys. Here you go, Command I. So for me, I have it set under Library Audio Plugins. So look at your hard drive, Library Audio Plugins. Okay. So yeah, you can buy plugins if you like. If you're a beginner, I probably would not recommend it at first. I would recommend you put all of your attention on just learning Logic. I mean, for 3 months, 6 months, a year, watch the entire series. Practice all of the laws, all the rules, all the different ideas, and see if in fact you are making progress. That's basically what you want to do. And then once you see, yes, I am making progress, then you can kind of jump into other plugins and things like that. But learn everything inside of this program first. All right, so if we utilize the plugin manager, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later, we can actually rearrange the sub menus. We can categorize everything accordingly so that plugins appear alongside the plugin pop-up menu. So it's a lot easier for you to navigate all your plugins. If you don't have that many, this is probably not that big of a deal, but believe me, after 7 years in the game, it certainly becomes a big deal. So yeah, we're going to get into all this stuff a little bit later. It says what to do if an audio unit is not working. So let's say you download something, doesn't work. What do you do? Well, you are probably going to want to talk to the vendor, make sure you have the latest up-to-date version. If there's an installation file, again, make sure you get that from the vendor. Sometimes you'll buy a plugin and they'll forget to send you the license code or what have you. Every plugin is a little bit different. Some of them use the iLock system. Some of them just use installation files. Some of them have their own proprietary authorization system. I know the IK Multimedia team just released their new authorizing system today, which I'm glad they did. Follow the vendor or the documentation to reinstall. So maybe you installed it in the wrong place. I mean, it's possible if you're a beginner. The next thing that you could do is open up the plugin manager. And when you do that, we can rescan them. Okay. So when you activate an audio unit plugin, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to pass the audio unit validation. They're saying here that the system may crash. I find that my system doesn't crash using the plugin manager. And then at the end, if you cannot get this to sort out, you're going to have to reach out to whoever it is that you bought the plugin from. To be honest, it's not that complicated. It just depends on, where you got it and all that good stuff. So in most cases, you'll download the plugin. It'll show up right in here and show is over. But in other cases, you will have installation files. I actually keep a separate hard drive, okay? And I keep all my plugins, installation files, and licenses in here. Cool. Yeah, and I guess just one more thing, like if you want to, you can also download the company, like for example, Output has a great hub, and everything is available inside of this hub. I just downloaded the, oh yeah, I was going to pop it up, but it's cool. I just downloaded the IK Multimedia hub. And so, yeah, it just depends. So you want to be hip to what you're doing and take your time. Don't buy too many plugins to start, okay? All right. Celemony provides an extension. So now there's new technology called ARA. This is really magnificent. You guys are going to flip over this. There's only a couple plugins right now that are utilizing it, but let me tell you, this is the future. Let me show you. So an ARA plugin provides several benefits to enhance your workflow. First, you no longer need to capture audio before working. Second, your edits are preserved when you move or copy the audio region to another track, as long as the plugin's inserted in ARA mode in the first audio effect. Hold on, I want to see this. Preserved when you move or copy the audio to another track, as long as the plugin is inserted in ARA mode in the first. Wow, I didn't know that part. That's cool. Your edits to the audio material are preserved when you copy the project. Yeah, that's awesome. When you insert a plugin in this ARA mode, Flex is disabled. So these two cannot coincide from what I remembered. Also, the compare button is not available in the plugin window. I would say that that's obvious because it's now being processed by ARA, as some people call it. Before you begin working, you start to playback. Transfer the song information, all relevant audio analysis results in the plugin. All right, you have to see this to believe it. It's really remarkable. Yeah, it looks like you can use an ARA2 compatible plugin as part of selection base. I had no idea. This is really cool. Very cool. So if you use selection-based processing, you can actually use that inside of this new tech. So let's pull this up. So I have Alchemy, in which case I'm going to, I don't know if I have the right sound for this, to be honest. Oh yeah, I know, right here. Okay, so the way that this works is it has to be instantiated at the top of the chain. Okay, so let me go ahead and look for this. I have it under a category called vocal. That's when I use it most, but that doesn't mean you can just use it for vocals. You'll see that I will instantiate it. Let's hope this works. I will hit close. I'll hit play for 1 second. Okay, and then as soon as I stop my playback, there are all the notes right there. So that's really amazing. Now I can change these notes if I would like to. Why don't I give you a demo of that? Let's go to bar 17. Here it comes. Okay, good. So I'll take these two notes, and remember, this is an audio thing, so it's amazing. It's almost like MIDI. So I'll change that, and then I'll change this. Let's just go up here. All right, let's try this. So that's pretty cool. Now you can render that and everything bounces in real time. And there's way more here. Melodyne is a superb plugin. If you want to see me create some content, perform some content for you about Melodyne, hit me up in the comments. I'll be glad to do so. Really, really good stuff here. Let's see. Was there anything? Oh, yeah. I want to try this out on selection-based processing. So I know this may be a little much for some of the newer people here, but just, take notes, and I'm sure it's coming. Soon enough, you'll start seeing all the possibilities for yourself. So here's Melodyne ARA. Let's create a stereo version of this. So then again, I'll hit play one time over. Not sure if it did it, but we're going to check. Yeah, I don't see it being processed. Normally, you just, you press play that one time and then you're good to go. So I'm not sure if this is still in transition. I'm sure it works. If you try it in your system and it works, just shoot us a comment. Let us know if you see anything different, okay? So anyway, we got to keep moving. There's more to do. So that's cool. I should probably draw in a question mark here, but it's cool. Let's keep going. Page 565, using the plugin manager. Let's cover this and then we'll call it a day. All right, so we've got a plugin manager. This can give you an inside scope into validating all the various plugins that you have. And so what is this going to help with? Minimizing the problem that may be caused by plugins not built into Logic Pro. So for example, is it corrupt? Has it been validated? You get more information by utilizing this menu. The validation process takes place automatically when Logic Pro is first open. So it's going to scan it. Some of these plugins use some kind of internet technology where they can scan your plugin, and you have to be connected to the internet. It's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. So let's see. When Logic is first open and you download a new plugin, you'll find that a scan process takes place. So then you can open the plugin manager, key command P, left column of the plugin manager window, list all internal and Logic plugins by category. So you see where it says Apple right here. So this is where you can see what's available, just stock, all the GarageBand plugins and Logic plugins right here. If you want to create categories, you could do it in this window right here. So again, they kind of give you a nice menu to start. Then you have top level, which are your premier plugins, the ones that you use the most often. And then kind of at the very top, you've got show all. Let me draw that over. Show all, which is kind of let me see everything. We have a search filter, the top of the right corner here, where we can type in either the name of a manufacturer, the name of the company itself, and then that will search your plugin list and warrant whatever it is you're looking for. So that's cool. Sorted. Yeah. So all good stuff. All these columns here, they can all be readjusted from what I remember. Looks like you have a way to change more information in there. I should open this up on my end here. Command P does that. So here we are, right? All these columns, as I said, you can move them around. Looks like we can custom name these. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know that. So it's funny. I've been looking at this for so many years, and I didn't even take note of this part of the program. Isn't that awesome? I'm sure that's happening to you as well, where you're like, man, I've seen this 100 times. I've never looked at this one feature. So that's pretty amazing. Let's say you didn't want to use something. I'm going to click on use here, and you'll see that I actually have some plugins, not necessarily removed from my system, but disabled. Like, you see, I have Q2. I downloaded Q3. I don't need Q2 anymore, but just in case there was a session, I utilized Q2. I want to have it in the background. MIDI shaper just updated to 2. So anyway, a lot of these can actually just be deleted. And where you would do that is inside of the components folder. Do you remember I showed you that? So for example, let me see, I want to delete this one, Acusonus Era D. So I'll go back to that file. Let's see, library, audio, plugins, components, and what was it called again? Era something. Yeah, Acusonus Era D. Let's resize this, right? Give us a little more space here. Acusonus Era D. It's right here. So I'm going to control click, move it to the trash. All right. And then from here, I'm going to reset and rescan. And we see that it's not even in the system anymore. So the next time that you open Logic, essentially this won't even show up anymore. Wonder, yeah, let's stop there. Let's keep going. So if we want to create a new category, we can do that. And I need you to be extra careful when we're doing this, okay? Because you can actually lose plugins. So please take your time. If you're underslept, if you're stressed, do me a favor, don't do this right now. I'm always telling you to do it, but in this one instance, I need you to pay very close attention because my aim is to contribute to your life and bring clarity, bring more understanding. And the last thing that I will do is give you more to think about or just, give you more complications. We're going to make your life easier. We're going to make it better. Remember, we're going places. I want you to remember that. I want that to stay with you. But in order to get there, we have to execute properly every time. Okay, so we want to create a new category. I'm simply going to call this test. All right, it's very simple. There's a plus symbol at the top right here. I'm going to hit that. Okay, we'll call this test. I've created my first category folder. Okay, now let's say I want to go into a plugin company. My favorite company right now is Leapwing Audio. I think they just have the best stuff, and you get just the best results and fast too. So let's move stage 1, or even stage 1, and let's move it to test. Now you'll notice it's still here, right? It wasn't eliminated from the list. Well, that's because it's still inside of the manufacturer, Leapwing Audio, right? But if I click away from this screen and I go to show all on the top left, now I'm looking at everything again. Okay. If I go to test, we have a folder, a category with one plugin. I'm going to delete this. All right. I'm going to control click remove, or I can just hit delete. Okay. That doesn't mean that it's been deleted from my system. Now we want to corroborate that just to make sure that we don't lose anything. But again, if I go, this time I'll search in a different way. I'll go to show all the top left and I'll type in Leap Wing. Of course, everything comes up and there's stage 1 right there. Awesome. Okay, so that's kind of the first test. We also have top level plugins, and what are these? Well, when I click, you'll find the plugins that I personally use the most often, or the plugins that I want to use the most often. Now, of course, there's no right or wrong with any system that you wish to create. Here's the way that I categorize everything for myself. This just works for me, right? But it may not necessarily work for you. And so we have to honor that. All right. So we can rename the categories by double clicking, create a new category, remove existing categories. Yeah, so let's say we didn't like the test thing anymore, right? If I just control click remove, it's gone. Actually, you know what? Before I forget, I want to do something. So I've been talking about plug search. In order for that plugin to work properly, you have to drag everything inside of it. All right, let's see what else we got. Page 566. If we want to enter a search term in the search field, we can do that. I've showed you how to do that. I typed the name of the company before, but we could type in compressor, and this is going to pull up every single compressor that I have in my system. Right here they are here. Yeah. So And by the way, let's say you might get more results with less letters, because now it's starting to look at other plugins that may be in your system as well. So just be aware of that behavior. You want to disable a plugin, go to show all, deselect the checkbox. Okay, so let's say you are done with one plugin because it's just overcomplicating your life. If you deselect it, it's gone. It's gone from the search menu, but it's not gone from the system. If you want it to be gone from the system, you have to delete it from here, as we talked about. Cool. If we want to rescan, well, we hit reset and rescan selection. When would you do this? Well, sometimes certain plugins, they just need a little bit more push. Let me see if I could find one here for you that may actually work. Not validated. No. Let me see. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that could not be opened. No. I can't do it. But if something wasn't working properly and wasn't being validated, you would simply click and then reset and rescan selection. And that should help you in most cases. If you want to copy a selection from a manufacturer listing to a category, again, select them, drag the selection to the category. You can also do that from category to category. So if you're like, I want this wave box in this one instead, you can do that. And from what I remember, it actually moves it over. And you know what? We should test this to be fair. So I'm going to go for my favorites, Filter Jam. I'm going to move this over to default. You see how it moved out? And then Filter Jam is in that category now, but I'm moving it back from here. A lot of great plugins by Audio Thing. Check them out. Such an outstanding company. All right, so let's see. Moving, we talked about that. Returning to default category and manufacturer listing. Any plugins you've moved to return to their default, you created manually, remain in the category list. In Logic Pro, click Restore Default Settings. So if you hit Restore Settings, the top here, basically you go back to square one. You go back to the beginning. So any plugins that you've moved, they all return back to normal. Okay. All right, 567. I think I'm going to stop there. That's cool. All right, team. Hey, it's Thursday. We covered a lot. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to spend some time with you. There is so much to learn, and I really do feel honored to be able to take the time. And I've learned a tremendous amount of information just being here with you. And it's important that you do set aside the time. This is why when I do start the calls, I say something to the effect of put the most important things in your life first, because to me, you are the most important. Your progress, your development, at some point, you're going to have to take on the belief of another person, right? And maybe you don't have the support that you've always been looking for, and it just takes one person. I've helped a lot of people already. You can look me up. You can go to my Instagram, Eddie Gray Music, and I'm on a quest to help 10,000 more. And so if you appreciate the support, all I ask is that you sub on the channel, you share this with one person, share this on social media just one time over, and then we will call this a deal. I appreciate your time, energy, support, prayers, meditations, all that good stuff. I'm going to get out of here. I will catch you tomorrow. And if you want to be on these calls with me, perhaps taking questions, then I advise you to hit that notification bell so we can be together and we can be on the up and up. All right. Remember to stay in beast mode. And I will catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.